Well, hello, hello. I am Matthew Orr of Wet Ink Games, and this is Other Ink Thursday, where I talk to people whose work I'm not currently publishing. I have this is my first interview to feature three people simultaneously. Um, it may be all chaos. We'll find out. Um, I am joined tonight by Ryvre Hardrick, the owner at Goblin Market Manga, and two people who I've talked to plenty of times. Jess Geyer and Alex Sprague of WannabeGames. And this is part of my ongoing post-Gen Con coverage where I am following up with things and people who I saw at Gen Con or didn't see at Gen Con and what about what they did at Gen Con when I was in my booth running stuff. Or so the three of you did, as far as I know, you're the three who did the Dune LARP. There was a Dune LARP at Gen Con, and you wrote it and designed it and ran it, and I want to hear all about it, basically. That's my only question, is tell me all about it.
We
I
were of
have
the three. There were more. There were more of us
Mhm.
involved.
Okay. Well, that's one of the questions. I was led to believe you were like the three, the
Hmm.
inner circle, right? But you explain all about it when you get there.
Hmm.
Yeah, I welcome all three of you to here, and we're going to talk about it. The Dune LARP is what was it actually called? Was it called Dune LARP, or what was it?
The spice must flow,
The
right? That was
Spice
in the
Must Flow.
title, I believe.
I
Yep,
think it might have actually been Dune colon the spice must flow.
Okay.
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
weren't very creative with the name.
No.
Well, I, I, I mean, this is sort of a question before we even. I don't know. It's one of my questions, but it's like, so this wasn't like you're on the planet Baracus and you're collecting the Bryce and the Barconans are there. It wasn't like a fun pretend version of it. It was like, just call it Dune. Everybody's gonna know what it is that way, kind of thing. I mean, that's gets into like I don't know if there's it's an old enough book. Like who is enforcing the? Nobody at Gen Con cares if you are using these things that are technically owned by HarperCollins or whatever. Like I
Hmm.
assume like it just wasn't even didn't even come up, right? I assume there's no like rules about this kind of stuff, or is there? I
Mm,
don't know.
Yeah. Is there any rules on LARP? Because most LARPs I see are about, in some way, some kind of IP. Are, is it kind of just a gray area where it doesn't make enough money for anyone to ever care?
I think so. At Gen Con, there's over 25,000 events, and a lot of the tabletop games are also like in somebody else's universe.
Sure.
Um, so kind of similar to fan fiction.
Yeah.
Like we could file off the serial numbers, but it's a game that had like 60 people in it, so I wasn't super worried about it.
Yeah.
yeah. I you guys know I'm a copyright disrespecter.
Well, I know. Like, but that's part of I mean, if that's part of the point of it is maybe like a thing. Like I don't know. I didn't even know. Like you it had been called the Dune LARP, but that is what it was called,
Mhm.
and nobody made a fuss, which is great. Nobody should
For
be making a fuss, but
for a reference, I mean I've very well established myself as a parody artist, so I am unimpeachable in all things. The Supreme Court loves parody, and that's all I'm gonna go with for
Hmm.
now. They just as long as they don't see the rest of my internet presence, I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Uh, Great. Okay, so I jumped ahead. I should have started with you, River, because as I've said a couple times, I've talked to Jess and Alex before, but I haven't talked to you. So I think maybe just briefly, I would like to hear a little bit about if you run a game store, like obviously you're not a new entity into into games, and I heard that you connected with them because you were running a LARP last year. So again, like I know you're not new, but I don't know. So tell me about like your uh entree into gaming and like what makes what why what are the what right decisions have you made in your life to be at the point where you're like running a game store and running LARPs at Gen Con, like what are some of what's your background as a game person?
Oh, so many great decisions to bring me to this point. So I've been gaming pretty much my entire life. I think my mom ran like a D&D game at Christmas when I was a kid. But I grew up gaming, started running a comic store, God, like 18 years ago at
All
this
right.
point. Ran that place for about 15 years and started up gaming at that store. And then when I opened my own store, at almost exactly 2 years ago at this point, we started up with a lot more gaming, especially a focus on indie games, indie RPGs, and indie board games because you can go pretty much anywhere for D&D. You can go pretty much anywhere for Catan. We want to be a space where people can come and play things that they haven't heard of,
Mm.
um, and find things that they wouldn't necessarily find just looking on, Amazon or walking through Target or even walking through like a more traditional like game or comic store.
Yeah.
And then I started writing games too because you can't play games for this long and not write them. As far as I can tell, it gets you, and then you're trapped. It's like the Santa Claus. Someone who is a game
Oh
designer,
no,
like
not the Santa
handed
Claus.
me a game and was like, "Huh, now you're a game designer. You have to do this forever."
And you try to shave off your beard in the mirror and it just keeps growing back. It's really body horror when it comes down to it.
So I've got to find someone to pass the curse along to
Oh,
eventually. Otherwise, I'm going to be trapped writing LARPs and games forever.
That's what Haven's for. That's why you
Yeah.
Yep.
brought that's why you brought them
Yep.
up.
Yeah, we had a fun place during Gen Con called LARP Jail, where we were sending people to finish writing games that weren't quite finished because we had signups up until about 13 hours before the game started. So LARP Jail's a fun new place we're inventing to pass the curse on to.
all
Mhm.
right. So don't get sent to LARP jail, or you might never leave.
You're gonna get sent to LARP jail. This is just
Uh,
I know you have like I feel like this is a good little segue here to what being like writing a LARP is different from being a tabletop role play
Mhm.
game designer. Like if I'm publishing something for a TTRPG, I have to have things done pretty well in advance before I can send it to a book form, blah blah blah.
Hmm.
You can keep designing your LARP up to and through the entire gameplay.
Right.
Um,
Because it's
Yeah.
sort of like an unplay
it's a scenario.
testable
Yeah,
thing. Like every time you run it is a play test of it, in some respects. Like oh, this isn't working. We got 3 hours to go. Change it, you know.
it's much more like running just a convention game, like running a game, like running a session of a game than it is. I
Mhm.
say from my experience, my just less experience in River here, but from doing this in this way, mm, yeah, you can be in LARP jail very very close to your deadline. Is a deadline
yeah.
even real? I don't think so.
Well, especially a convention game, because if we are running the game in our own space, we could say, this is how many players we have. When we have
Hmm.
this many players, the game is sold out. Like, you have given us money, you will show up at the game. Gen Con, we tell them what our maximum is. Some number of people sign up. We hope that most of those people will show up. They may or may not be in contact with us beforehand. We might get a whole bunch of signups the day before, and I have to go beg Gen Con to please, please, please shut off ticket sales. We can't keep writing characters. The game is tomorrow. Um, we can have people sign up 3 days before when we're already traveling and send an email saying we have to be playing together no matter what. And we go, oh God, we don't have characters that are together that we can assign you. And the format of Gen Con and big conventions is, well, they can keep joining. They can come up with tickets like at the door, and we
Mhm.
need to have a character for them. So it's a lot more um, chaotic than writing something for publication.
Yeah. Well, do you think I mean, do you think you thrive on that kind of chaos? Is that like part of the fun of doing it?
Ah,
I feel like everyone here is gonna have a different answer.
Well, yeah, it's kind of an all three
I
of
mean,
you question there.
the answer:
Mm.
Jess thrives. I do okay. And I will not answer for River. River can answer
yeah.
how River
I
wants.
if there is
Sometimes I
time
drive.
left before the deadline, and I've completed everything, I will have more ideas and give myself more tasks. So I'm working up to that deadline literally like whenever. There's no amount of planning that that will make me stop having new ideas of wouldn't it be cool if we just did
Mm.
this 6 hours before the game. We had a printer in
Mm.
the room. Like I not for this game, but for one of the other games I ran, I printed out new mechanics 10 minutes before game started because I went, wait, wouldn't this be cool? So I don't know if that's thriving or dysfunction. One or the other.
The line between thriving and dysfunction is very
Mhm.
nebulous. You can pass through it. It is the veil between worlds. That is where I was. Um, was it healthy that I would stay up until 3 in the morning and then wake up 5 hours later and then continue writing and sit in one spot until my legs cramped? Well, probably not. It was probably not that healthy, but I did it. Did I enjoy it? Yes, it was a thrill. It was like it was great, and I want to do it again.
Yeah.
But was it functional? I love a deadline though. I love I mean, okay, I love a deadline where it's like looming over me and then I have to. Like something bad will happen to me if I don't get it done. Like this LARP won't happen if I don't get this done. Um, I don't love it actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, it does induce panic. But after the fact, I'm like, ooh, that was so fun. Like
Uh,
climbed a mountain.
Or the roller
yeah.
coaster analogy or whatever, where like you've
Yeah,
got the long, slow climb and like, oh no, I don't know if I can handle this. It's like too late. You are strapped in.
Yeah.
complete with all the being strapped in and screaming. Complete.
Yeah. Uh, all right. So let's tell me a little bit about how. Oh, well, first off, like why Dune? Of all the things you could do, why Dune? And like again, because Jess and Alex, I've been to your place. You've got the old Dune game like up on the shelf, and like Dune is it means something to you, and I know that, but I don't know if I know what it means. So like all of you could t tell me what drew you to Dune. I mean it's a bit of a zeitgeist because there's been some big budget movies, but like there's got to be some reason why you want to dig into it beyond that. So
So there's a really short answer I'll give and then pass it over, which is uh, people said it couldn't be done and it was cursed. So me and Jess said, well, then we'll do it. Uh, and I think like the longer story, River would know more about
Yeah.
like how long it's taken to put on a Dune game.
Yeah, I think it was 7 or 8 years ago when people started like promising a Dune game. People were getting hyped about it. Um, and year after year, people would promise a Dune game, and then it would fizzle somehow. It wouldn't happen. Um, there would be a global pandemic. It was probably the
mm,
Dune game's fault. That was the Dune curse. Uh, People kept promising it and then it never happened. And I'm motivated by spite and challenges as much as anything else, probably more than anything else in my life. So I don't really care about Dune as a property very much. I know a lot about it now. I didn't really going in. I just knew that other people kept saying they were going to do it and failing, and I like to win. And this is how you win at LARP. You look at what everyone else is trying to do and not actually, getting out into the world, and you say, "Dibs, that's mine now. I'm doing it." Um, and then once you've done it, you've won.
Mhm.
That was a very fun part and is still a very fun and promising thing for me in this LARP space is that in a tabletop game there is D&D. You have this thing that everyone's competing with ostensibly. That does not really, I mean, it doesn't exist as much in LARP. Like there's some big box LARPs
yeah.
out there and there's some like big name, like obviously vampire LARPs are like huge. But no one like is holding them like, ha, everyone has to be like the in fact, everyone's don't be like the vampire LARP.
Well,
Change it. Not even the vampire LARPs are like the vampire LARPs. And you kind of have that freedom and like you're not making the heartbreaker. You're just doing the thing. There's nothing like really to compare yourself to. And I'm saying this from like a complete greenhorn in the LARP design space. I've just been a LARPer, like a gamer.
Mhm.
But coming from my perspective, it was great. Like what no one is expecting that much out of it other than a functional game that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
That people will leave with some stories and be able to dress up as their, you know,
Mhm.
cool character.
Yeah, I definitely want to ask about the costumes and stuff in a second here, but I mean, there's definitely yeah. I mean, I don't know that I've ever done a LARP at all, but I can feel with pretty confidence that like one third of all LARPs are not like a single particular LARP. Like,
Yeah.
you know, the way that you mentioned Dungeons and Dragons, like just takes even if you're not trying to compete with the big dragon game, like it's still got a gravity out there in the RPG space. Then yeah, there's nothing, not even Vampire LARP is one third of all LARPing. I don't imagine.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a much more open field. Yeah.
Mhm.
Uh, all right. So that's why Dune, various levels of spited interest. So like what then is so like how did it happen? How did your group, the three of you and the other people, you said there were other people involved, like how did at what point was this like, okay, this is what we've got to do? Like how does that story happen? Now, I Alex told the last time he was on my interview show, he told a little bit about some of this. So I heard about like how Fancy Innies in 2024 and his red tie got and red glasses got him like inducted to go be part of some other LARP that was already happening. And
Rivers.
Yep.
the way that this was, obviously, I'm retelling Alex's story quickly for comedic effect, but the way that I interpreted it was basically like they're just strolling. You and Alex and Jess in your costumes, or you're not costumes, your fancy any garb, are walking through the hall, and then someone rushes up to you and is like, you look like you'd be great in my LARP. I need you to like hand out this currency," and then like just ushers you into this world,
Mhm.
like it as if it was a completely serendipitous thing. Now, how accurate is that as a
I
like?
wish it was like that.
I mean, that's like 98% of the way there, though, because
Really,
it was just
98%.
because it was we were wearing the right outfit at the right time, and River and Dan needed us to lose souls,
Yeah,
Well,
with the currency.
we went upstairs for the because Dan O'Hanlon was like, "Hey, go say hi to River and Dan. Go look at their stuff."
Mhm.
And then, and then
Yeah.
yeah, I needed someone to help with stealing and giving out souls, mostly the gambling away souls part of it. And I was running just upstairs from the Ennies, but people weren't gambling away souls fast enough.
yeah,
Yeah.
River's been doing Fallen London games since before it was cool. So that was a Fallen London game. Uh, uh, I think, but really like the story of it all coming together, and this is a thing like River said, this has been a promised game for a while, and there were some documents that
Hmm.
had already been started and a rough outline of a story. And then like River, you knew about this because you knew Trey, who originally had been at the head of this, and I don't remember how we got involved in the Dune part,
Yeah,
Well,
other than we know about Dune.
I knew about Dune. Jess learned about Dune for this. I think is the big
yeah,
difference.
I'm
Because I
so
was originally just the encyclopedia, and now I'm like pretty sure Jess knows way more than me. Uh,
yeah. I knew someone from the group who had been talking about running a Dune game for years. And he never managed to get the entire rest of his writing group back to Gen Con. That was one of the
Hmm.
ways it kept falling apart every year. Someone would have a wedding or someone would just like be too busy with work. So Trey, our other writer, knew a lot of Dune, had like ideas of what the shape of the game would be, and the I don't know willpower to deep dive the Dune universe that I did not have,
yeah.
and still don't have. I'm appreciative that Jess did that one. I still don't know what's happening in that universe outside of the era of our game. Um, And I think I don't remember if I actually asked you guys because my recollection is I mentioned it around you guys, then told Trey a couple times that you guys were writing it with us, wrote that down, and eventually after Trey and I had a couple meetings, and I'm like, oh, I should actually ask Alex and Jess if they're interested in this, not just keep saying, no, they're writing, they're doing it. It's happening.
It
Yeah.
happened.
There was a gray period where one of our friends, Dan O'Hanlon, said that he doesn't think it can happen, and I said, "You're wrong. Everything you've ever said is wrong. I'm doing it." Because spite is obviously the best way to go about it.
This is the
Um,
thing that we all three have in common is
yeah.
Yeah,
spite.
yeah.
Spite
Which
motivation.
it sounds like Dan's a person I hate when I tell that story, but not only do I love Dan, we made
You-
him like one of the most important characters because we were
Yeah.
like, oh, we
This
want
is
to
for
show you how
you.
good we are. And then he was like, great, I had a fun time. And I'm like, yeah, showed you.
That's all I cared about was Dan's opinion in the end. Um, yeah, so
Mhm.
it just kind of happened like that. Just sort of fell into place. For
Yeah.
me, it sort of fell into place. I kind of daydream, like sleepwalk into a lot of stuff in my life. This has been true for my entire life. Um, I think if Alex had not been like, yeah, we're gonna do this, I wouldn't have done it probably. I probably would have been like, yeah, we talked about it Dune LARP once.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and it happened fast. It
And
was like 6 months.
it
Well,
was
yeah, that's
quick.
another thing that I was going to ask. Like, what is if the of the the being pulled into a LARP that someone else was running, a Fallen London LARP that was happening. That was not the initial meeting of all of you. That was you were going to visit because you already knew each other. That does make more sense.
Yeah.
But it's it's still a good story. Like just tell it the other way. But the
No,
um,
I mean
but
it is there
but
are
even
lots
but
of
even
weird
then, that's like a
serendipitous
maximum of
things.
1 year. Like it's still like there's a lot of
Mhm.
work to do. And you said
Yeah.
just 6 months just now. So like that's like how do you go about like making all the pieces and like you've mentioned writing for characters and writing up until the last minute and knowing the whole like history of the universe and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I mean, there's obviously a lot of pieces, but how did you break it down? And I'm seeding some of this because I know a little bit of some of the answers, but how do you break it down to like, okay, you know, how are you going to make this a Dune LARP? Like, how are you going to organize it? Or are you going to actually present? How did you piece up the giant history of the universe and then actually make things at the end that you hand out to people? Like, what is that whole process like?
So I actually want to back up a little bit and talk
Yeah.
about that timeline and why that timeline is so insane for people who've never submitted a Gen Con game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, we we can do like early submission of the game, which means we're pitching the game to Gen Con in February.
Hmm.
We find out by like April or May, like if they've accepted our game, it's on the schedule, and that's when we find out how many people are in it, like what our maximum is for sure. Where we're running it, because we might tell them, we're doing an 80 player game, like these are the rooms we prefer, and they'll be like, cool, you're doing a 40-player game. It's actually in this room that's up a whole bunch of stairs that you can't bring props. Um, so we don't really know until April, May, how many people this game's going to be for. And then that first round of signups in May, we get to see if people actually care about the game and are signing up. Are we going to have a full game or are we writing this game for 20 people? So anything that I've ever pitched for Gen Con that's like a bigger event like this is on this just insane like timetable of okay, like here's when we have an idea of how many players are in the game. Like people are still signing up, but we have to be writing it while they're signing up, which makes the division of labor and any sort of planning a little bit of a nightmare. We had schedules, and every schedule went out the window as we're just
Yeah.
like occasionally being like Gen Con, Gen Con.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
That's why like River, like what you said, having it at your own venue or having it at a convention that's dedicated to LARPs, like that's so much easier. That's so much more predictable. Because really like a LARP like that, especially a convention LARP, exactly how many people you have and how many characters you have and how they work together and fit together as a story, like
And
that's the work. That's so much
for
work.
I think for a sense of scale too is we had we're in arguments of how many people showed up. I think it's about 62. Um, and on average, it's 2.5 pages of character sheets per person, so it's like 150 pages written. Uh, most of that done in about a month. Past that, there's probably another 25 pages of lore and
Mhm.
information for everyone to read about if they need it, and then like
Yeah.
15, 20
About
pages of
40,
mechanics.
about 45 pages of lore between the
Okay.
ones that went out to different
Yeah.
groups, but some of that was repeating.
Yeah, I was trying to get like a sense of it because even looking, it's not easy for me to even find that with all this stuff.
It
But like at the end of the event, it's with that many people in that long an event because it's a 6-hour event. It's literally 15 days of story that they are playing out. Like it is huge. So like
It's a
that's
lot.
mhm.
And you also have to consider like, yeah, it's a Dune LARP and people who come in. So you have two poles of people. You have people who are so into Dune. They know more about Dune than I do, and they have opinions on Dune, and they know all the little secrets, and we're running a game in this universe where more or less real things happen. But it's also a canon that is not necessarily settled on. There's the Dune Encyclopedia, there's the different Dune movies, there are the Brian Herbert books, which again, Brian Herbert disrespecter if I keep saying to everybody, although some of his stuff did get into the game just a little bit. So you have all that on one end, which can be a whole mess. You like, I don't know, they're not as bad as Star Wars people. Like you piss off a Star Wars person, they're gonna come at you. But like a Dune person, I don't know. Like, are they gonna come at me if I like change these people's ages so it's not weird? Or if I like move people around to make a more interesting story? And then on the very other end of the spectrum, you have people who don't even know anything about Dune. They've never even seen a single movie. They're coming here to LARP with a friend. And you have to figure out how am I going to write, number one, how am I going to write a game for both these kinds of people and everyone across that spectrum? And how am I going to present that information to them in a way? Because it's Dune. Like, it's
Mhm.
not the easiest story to know and to
Yeah.
manage. It's not the most straightforward thing. How am I going to present information to both of those kinds of people that's not going to make either of their heads explode?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean
I
it seems like if you're doing, I mean, like with the Star Trek, I'm sure people are Star Trek LARPing and stuff like that, but like that's
They
so
are.
much of the media about Star Trek is like about the Federation versus the empires of the Star Empires or whatever, of their opponents, and you're gonna be on a Federation ship almost certainly. I mean, you could play like a Klingon crew, why not? But like, you're probably gonna be there's like a more of a structure to it, right? Whereas like Dune is one of those universes where, like, I mean, you could be anything. You could be a soldier story of just the Sardaukar troops, or you could have like there's all the houses, and then like all the houses have like everything that like a medieval house has with like an army and like spies and business. And so like you could do like
you had all
how did you decide to did you put it all out there for everybody to play with, or did you say like no, we're only going to have we have to limit somewhere, and there has to be some amount of limitations, and no, we're not going to get into that. That's for you know Dune 2 Electric Boogaloo, but like for this Dune LARP, it's just this
Well,
stuff.
I mean, I feel like we cut out so many things and there's still so much left of like we cut out like 90% of the books because most of the books were written by Brandon or whatever his name was and they're pretty
Brian.
bad. Brian. We cut
And there's
out
only like
like
5.5 books written by like the original guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's like 14 more. I've read like 17 of the books, so I know how bad they get. Um we cut out like just like from mechanics wise, I think like 5 or 6 just huge swathing ideas. People brought them back in anyway against our will, but
Against our
that
will.
that's just
Slightly
gonna
against
happen.
our will. We did let it happen.
Yeah, I mean, what are you gonna do if they want to play out a thing that technically they could figure out mechanically? Technically, they can do that. But I think like somehow the general sense of what Dune is, even though I'm like a huge David Lynch fan, and other people maybe only saw the Chalamet new ones, like all kind of conglomerated in the middle, and people got it of that it's melodrama and sand, and that water is important, and like it's politics. So
I mean,
I don't know.
those are that's the
Yeah,
highlights.
yeah,
It's
and you know we had a big kiddie pool filled with lentils that felt like sand, and like that's a prop that like that the price of those lentils really did so much to make people happy. It's just wild.
They were
um
so hard to get though.
yeah, which
Amazon only
It's
lets you buy
weirdly,
so many.
yeah, it's weirdly difficult to get that quantity of lentils.
Is that
Uh,
where you had a plastic worm somewhere you were showing me? Is that did
Mhm.
that go in the
Well,
pool of
yep.
worms as like
Yeah.
a
when we talk about the failures that did happen in this LARP, we'll talk
Mm.
about the worm because that's a
Yeah.
big disappointment of mine. Um,
Well,
no, I mean picking your I mean Matt, you're correct. There's like so much to go in a LARP in a Dune LARP, but that's like any other game, right? You figure out what your game's about and what you're doing with it and what's important, especially if you're looking at an IP.
Mhm.
And then you write the game around that. For me, I really like court politics. So like
right.
everything I did was court politics and then weird science I added in there because people like weird science.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we already kind of had a framework too because we knew it was going to be all the mysticism from Paul being weird, Wadib doing Wadid stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think we were trying to make the mechanics push role play as much as possible. And the mechanics we really always ended on are ones that made sense in Dune. Um, my my still favorite one that I have to make a million times harder next time was anyone who was a mentat had the ability to learn things about people by like looking at a name badge and figuring out a code. Well, they had to match the codes together with two people, and they could figure out what was in common between them. Which to me is like the most Dune thing I could think of is someone just being like, "What's weird about this situation?" Like, "Oh, they're both lactose intolerant. I get it now." And you're like, how did they figure that out?" Uh, that part was like, "Oh, I love that." How much that actually turned into role play stuff, I'm not 100% sure, but I do know the mentats were going like crazy over it, and they loved trying to all get together and figure out everything about everyone. And I'm like, well, that is how I view mentats, as these weird little freaks that want to know everything. So hopefully it pushed everyone in the right direction.
Well, yeah. I mean, as somebody who didn't LARP it, like that does sound great. Like it's like that if you want to play a Mentat character, then you want to be given a little bit that you can do that's like that. Like it's a challenge,
Mhm.
even if you're like most games, I feel like I like playing games, but I'm always bad at them. But like that's the kind of thing that like, ooh, yeah, great. If I know I can look at people's name badges and I'm playing a little mini game and it's like completely possibly invisible to other people, like because other people are playing their mini games or whatever, or their own storylines or whatever. Like that seems ideal. But then yeah, so like I assume it was like depth and breadth. So you want
Mhm.
like you've got to have the big famous houses, and then there's probably two or three other houses that are less famous that probably also have to have there. So you got the breadth, and then you want
You're
to have
right.
like, and then you want to have like different roles within each house because then they can talk to like all
Yeah,
the I mean that
Mhm.
again that just seems like
you
the
got it.
obvious
You
thing
should
to
do the
go.
next one.
Maybe, but like, so you set that all up, and so like, and Alex is talking about mini games for the different. I know he's described it that way as mini games for the different like little factions or whatever. So like, how many of those are like circling about how many different like mechanics were sort of all happening at the same time while so I imagine that these are all sort of like small things that are taking up maybe a lot of some people's time, but overall not a lot of what is going on are these smaller things. I'm sure you got to track spice, and maybe you've got some ship stuff, and you said weird science, and there's guns and soldiers and like
No guns.
uh,
There was no guns. They were
just
taken away by
just
the Sardaukar guards because we didn't want to deal with them.
but you were dueling. Was there dueling? Dueling is
There,
such a like a thing.
there was
They did
dueling. Yeah.
dueling.
So that's another mini game.
Originally,
So like I said, I mean we can name all the pieces if you
Yeah.
want, but like how many different like things were people able to do that were kind of happening simultaneously within the context of like 62 people in the room, you know?
There were too many.
Yeah, there was too many. We would cut out over half of them if we did it again, but most of them ran through the same like visual cues of these little cards that were items or powers, um, and maybe weren't explained well enough, or 100% weren't. Uh, but yeah, it was clear after the fact that like most of the mechanics didn't matter. I scrapped one before the game started because I realized there was too much going on there.
I mean,
Because
Ryvre, go no, finish your sentence.
oh yeah, I was gonna say like there was even we had scrapped one whole idea, which was a dueling tournament, which then they did anyway. That was the thing I was referencing, which we did not have time for. So we were like, all right, hurry it up. Like, guys, stop it.
Get a roll on. So announce someone's
Yeah.
dead. I don't
Yeah.
know. Oh,
It's like
Ryvre.
we cut this because it's going to derail the game, and now they've added it back in on their own, and it's derailing the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was validating to see that it was derailing the game. Ryvre, I mean, you've run and written and run LARPs where there's like no mechanic. There's
Oh,
no
yeah.
mechanics in Fangs. Not really. I mean, kind of, but not really.
Mhm.
Yeah, I tend to write more freeform than this was, where the main mechanics are, I don't know, play pretend with your friends.
Yeah.
Don't actually hit them, but like talk about it a lot. So this was a little like higher mechanic than I tend to do, but I love prop-based mechanics. The
Mm,
kiddie pool full of lentils, like that
Yeah.
that sort of thing is my like sweet spot for mechanics. Something that
Yeah.
like is immersive and unique, and that people are going to talk about later.
And
Yeah.
that's fun. Like people like to play pretend. You don't really need to tell them how to do it. If you give
right.
them a good enough character and a
Well,
goal, they're gonna go. They'll talk for 3 hours,
well, like
and
the
they'll talk. They'll want
permission,
more.
yeah, the permission is like you're in a Dune LARP, and then they can go do whatever they want, you know. Uh,
Yeah. I think for the size it was, we needed some things of like, we couldn't put a corner of the room filled with sand that they can go pretend in. So we needed,
I wanted an actual sand
yeah,
pit. I
which
was
is
told no.
why we had the kiddie pool of lentils, which was the excursion area where when you were going out into the desert, you'd go there. And it turned cool because we were able to come up with a physical way to do danger, which was reaching your hand in and pulling out die. And if they were white, you were safe, and if they were red, you were in danger. Um, but any of the mechanics that kind of didn't have any physicality to them, I'm like, 100% right. Get rid of them. Just don't need them. I would the Mentat one's good. We had a little spice game that was fine. Although again, we had to double speed it because there wasn't time for it, and the Harkonnens didn't care about it. So
so you mentioned earlier, and maybe this kind of can be the last sort of like mechanics sort of question, then we can talk sort of, you mentioned like highs and lows, and I want to get to those for sure. Um, but you mentioned 15 days of story.
mhm.
So if you divide 15 days by like even by 6 hours, there's like, I mean, that's like maybe 20 minutes or so of like, okay, all this stuff has happened. Next day, it's the next day. You know, you can't talk anymore today.
Oh
You're gone. It's the next day. You know, like, was there like a time clock that somebody was having to keep moving forward on all of these storylines, or did I misunderstand what you meant?
yeah, there was 3 days of in-game happening. I meant
Mm,
that if you multiply the amount of hours by the amount of people, there's literally 15 days worth of like time that went by.
okay,
I have
okay,
a
okay.
thing broken in my brain where all I care about is that someone plays a game for longer than it takes to write it, and that it's a success. That's my version of success. And I don't. We maybe put 15 days in, but
Not straight, not
yeah,
hours.
yeah. So success
It's
there, and now we can run it again easier later.
it's such a that's a very interesting mechanic. But yeah, like every time, you know, you get a table of six people to play a game for 4 hours, that's a lot of hours,
Mhm.
you
That's
know,
Gen
of
Con law.
entertainment. It was worth
Yeah.
it. That's a interesting mechanic. Okay, so three in-game stories, but still the same question. Like compressing a 24-hour period where scheming and traveling and excursions can all happen down into like a 2-hour chunk would be like, great, you got to keep going. What is the? I mean, was there a timekeeping thing like that, or was it more? I don't know. Was it organized some way else where that wasn't so important?
Each day in the game was roughly an hour of real time. And we used an hourglass because it felt thematic. And when I say roughly an hour, I mean it was 56 minutes because that's what we figured we could fit into our slot. And we removed sand from the hourglass. My partner and I kept removing sand and testing how long our hourglass went till we got to the right amount of time. And then that was a big central point in the game up by the GM table, so players could look and see like, oh, that hourglass is getting pretty low. Like day day two is almost done. I'd better, I don't know, tell this person that I love them or that I hate them before the end of the day.
No, I mean that, and that's a mechanic too. Just like the literal currency of time.
Hmm.
How much time do you have to spend? River, you always say something when you're giving your spiel before the LARP, like no one cares if you reveal, oh, and no one figured out that I was the whatever. Like you gotta spend your secrets. Otherwise, I mean, you
Hmm.
can't take them with you. Not really.
Yep, if they don't come out in game, your secrets, your motivations don't exist. They didn't happen.
Mhm.
That's great advice. Yeah, it's not for the after action report. It's for playing it out in the. You didn't live action it if you wait till the after action talk. Um, all right. So you mentioned good and bad, and you've kind of already mentioned it, and like maybe something went wrong with the worms in the sand, maybe, or maybe there were too many mechanics. Like, what are some of the like let's start with some like for next times, and then you could tell me the larpiest LARP moments that were your favorite that really made your heart sing, and then at the end. I haven't been watching our time, so I think we're not quite at an hour yet,
Not
but
yet.
we don't want to take forever. So yeah, so what are
I'll
some things that
I'll
you like didn't go off quite as well? Because it sounds very complicated, and you put 62 people in a room and tell them to do anything, and will they actually do it is I can't even imagine. But like, what are some of the stuff that you're definitely like, oh, next time we'll do this differently? Or
All right. I lovingly wrote many characters. I didn't write all of them, but I wrote a good amount of these. Most the plurality of characters. Um, I wrote a storyline for House Mortani, not a known house. And part of their storyline, spoilers for anyone who wants to play this game in the future, stop listening. If you want to play this game, don't listen because it's going to be
yeah,
better next time. They were supposed to be able to find a baby worm. Like they had intel on a baby sandworm, and that is the most valuable thing you could possibly have. Everyone wants this baby worm. They're the only people who knew who it was. And instead, they spent their entire game trying to marry their niece. Um, yeah, it was
Oh,
bad.
not
And you
not marry off their niece to
no,
another
Mm.
person.
so
Which
a
would have been okay.
player, yeah, trying to kind of foist this marriage plot on maybe the youngest femme character, like youngest femme player in the room who was not comfortable with it at all.
mhm.
So we had to make some like adjustments last minute to like support that player, like get her to like plots that she cared about, players that she felt a little bit better being in scenes with.
Hmm.
And that's
Also,
the hard part too. Like even if it wasn't like, oh, sorry, River, you finish.
oh, I think we're actually from where you're starting to say about the same thing. But even if it wasn't that, like you never know what your players are just going to not jive with. So you can be like, I wrote this fucking badass like storyline. And then the player saw something shiny on the wall, decided that was their plot, and now the game is all like well, why is that on the wall game? Well, that's not what we wrote, but you can't prevent that.
And you can't really be like, okay, everybody stop. Hold on a second. You're getting it all right. It's supposed to be a slightly immersive experience. It's not
Yeah.
like when you're playing at a tabletop game and you'd be like, hold on, guys, we need to take a second, we need to regroup. I mean, you can do that, and there are pockets of doing that within a LARP, but you can't just completely grind things to a halt because something is not going the way that you had planned. You have to like think so much more on the fly as a GM. Um, I felt like I was teaching my freshmen. I felt like I was in a high school classroom, oh, everyone has questions and there's 60 of you now. That's just two of my classes. Oh, I'll answer your questions. Luckily I'm used to that, but like, whew, that was a lot. That was a lot. And you can't plan for that. That's of course. So next time we run it, I will make sure that's the part of the plot that I will solidify a little bit more. There will be more people who are involved. Um, yeah, what are you gonna do in the end?
Mhm.
Other
But
than
even
have
without,
robust safety mechanics, which we did. I'm
Good.
proud
yeah.
of our safety
Good.
mechanics.
And I'm gonna guess even without doing anything to like fortify that plot will fire next time because sometimes your favorite plots just don't go because players are chaotic and it's a game where instead of like, one or two main characters for a movie, there's 62 players and all of them are the main character and you just can't, I don't know, you can channel them, but you can't tell them how to be.
Right.
It's like high school. It's just like teaching. This is why I love GMing. It's just like teaching. I have all these skills, and I'm already set up to take that and not take it personally when that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
But
was
things like,
my fail point. That was my low.
yeah. But like we were talking a little bit about the duel that we cut and then like
Oh yeah.
players put it back in because that's such a I don't know, that's such like a cool point of Dune lore, like the duels, and we had decided to cut it because it does like pull focus away from the rest of the game. Players figured out a way to put it back in because it's cool,
Yeah.
and they wanted to, and it kind of separated the game in a way that like I was struggling with during the game to like pull it back on track for the people who weren't part of the duel. And I
Mhm.
think the lesson I took there was if it's cool enough that players are putting it back in, then we need to write that part and support it in a way that doesn't cut it off from the rest of the game or that doesn't become that sort of distraction because it's so cool that players are going to do it whether we write it or not. So we've got to
Yeah.
write it in a way that actually like works with the game.
Yeah. My low is right next to this, which is as part of our workshops, I was going around to specific groups and going, here's a deep dive on this mechanic because it's most important to you. And then for the duel, the Emperor, who did not know exactly that I did this because his mechanic was go be political, said that the duel would happen, but none of the sword masters of the families are allowed to fight. You have to
Yeah.
send someone else, which meant everyone who was fighting didn't get the deep dive on how to do the dueling mechanic. And I was like, so I had to be there while I should have been somewhere else. And I was like, I, I, there's ways I could have fixed this beforehand, but there's no good way to fix it now. I am just gonna have to ignore people for a little bit. And
It was a big
it
play
wasn't perfect.
test.
Yeah. Which next time anyone any fighting age person is getting the dual talk.
This is how you do it. You never know when you need to fight.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean that
Yeah.
goes into my high though. Like
Yeah,
Mhm.
the
please.
nice thing was even when you're in the middle of a game and you're running something, again, I'll just make everything connected to teaching. Like if I'm in the middle of teaching a lesson and I feel like it's going poorly, like that affects me. Like I'll see all the things that my students don't see. The same thing as a GM, whether that's tabletop or a LARP. You feel like, ooh, the energy here is not the energy I was expecting, and it can make you feel some sort of way. But then at the end of a game, at the end of a LARP, this is what happens to me as a player. I've been doing LARP since I was in college, um, many different kinds, and it had happened to me for the first time as a GM. At the end, people want to talk about what their characters did. They want to talk about what was happening, and they want to gush about like what they were doing in the story, like what they found cool, what was awesome, what wasn't. In a way that people don't do for your TTRPGs.
Mhm.
It maybe it was because of the time too. Like the time slot was later. Like we ended like around six.
6
Yeah,
p.m.
six.
Saturday.
So people probably didn't have stuff scheduled directly after that, although a couple of people did. They had more time to sit around, but people want to sit and talk about their characters and talk about the plot, and that is so gratifying as a
Mm.
designer. Like, oh, you liked it. You actually liked it. You're saying these things. Um, and I've just never gotten that as much as like as much as a TTRPG game runner. People will talk a little bit, but they don't feel at they're not as like connected to their characters in a TTRPG as they are in a LARP.
Yeah, I think it's the embodiment. It helps with that, and like you're also the time period you're doing it for 6 hours. Like you're just more into it, in a lot of ways than
Yeah,
you know, looking at some dice on the table.
people get really into it.
So what are
And I think,
costumes?
Oh yeah, the costumes were
oh
amazing.
yeah, yeah,
You,
people look great.
Mm.
I think you started to say something else, River. I cut you
Oh,
off.
no, I was gonna say, I think people also like in LARP come to the GMs after a lot more to tell us what happened in their game because they know that we couldn't see it.
Yeah.
At a
Mm.
tabletop game, like if I'm running something, I know what happened because I was there running it. Um, I talked to people over in like the Emperor's faction at the end of the game who were across the room from me, and they did such cool stuff that I had no idea about because there was, 60 some people in the room, and I was on the other side of the room that entire time. There were scientists who kept coming to me for props, and I had no idea what they were actually like
Yeah.
doing with any of that because there was so much happening and just like we need more of this like okay like I'll pull you props and I didn't even know what was happening with them until after the game. So like having that time after game where people come and tell you what happened is really cool because
Yeah.
as a GM at the end of a LARP, I don't know what happened in it at all.
It was that was so cool. Like honestly, the scientists, like the doctors and the scientists,
Mhm.
I did not expect them to get that into the story that they did. Like they were so into the science. Long story short, they cured cancer,
Hmm.
but only and then I was like, okay, now kill the wife. And so the off-character wife, I was like, fridge her, fridge her. Now they've discovered a cure, she's dead. They gotta cure people in game. So
Mhm.
I was evil. I knew it was going to happen. I wanted it to happen that way. So that's my
Yeah.
favorite part. They were so into it. Those were my favorite character experiences for sure. Were the doctors like trying to figure out this little mystery that we had just like it was like a D plot in there.
Mhm.
That's what they were doing with all those slides, remember?
I'm just constantly like, I didn't bring enough microscope slides to give people physical props. I'm just cutting out paper and writing microscope slide and being like, what are they doing?
I gave them information that they were studying, like plant biology and like uh
Mhm.
other stuff. And also in one random in like a couple of their character sheets and then in like one random story background thing I said that there is a garden on top of the government mansion, which is true in in Dune. There is a botanical garden up there with lots of different plants, including the plants from the planet they were studying in before, and they just took that and went with it. I love that they found that
Mhm.
and used it for their plot.
And one of them went out to the desert and got a little bit of plant matter and brought it back, and that was an important plot point. That was like they were so hyped to have
I
found a
love that.
small piece of grass or something out there, and they're like, "This is what I need." And I was like, "Yeah, you can take a moment to pick up the flower." Yeah.
So that was something that was deliberately put into
Mhm.
the kiddie pool of lentils, was a
Uh,
sample.
yeah, the
Oh,
excursions were very much more like a little quick, more traditional RPG sessions where they had to use powers.
more like a
Um,
choose your own adventure almost.
yeah, and in one of them there is just I make mention that there is a plant that is growing on a rocky outcropping, and no one cares about it until it's the scientist who cares so much about that that they're rabid for the small plant. But we had a lot of things out there that were unimportant to a lot of people, but if the right person came across it, they're like, "Oh, yes."
Mhm.
That's kind of that what you were saying before, River, where like everyone's the main character of
Mhm.
their own story, and because yeah, if nobody in the group cares about the plant, but then you're in the group where somebody does, then they get their moment. That's neat. Uh, all right. Are there any other like things you want to? I don't know. It
Oh,
sounds
yeah.
funny to like. I mean, I don't want to tell you to like praise yourselves, but like you praise the players, right? Like
Yeah.
you initiated the thing and you drew the magic circle, but then like the players did the stuff. So like, what is any other highlight moments that you want to shout out?
The I have a bunch of quick ones, which is the water merchant spent weeks freezing the right amount of water to serve people like bottles of water with ice in them while the
Really,
thing
like
happened.
literally, like in real life.
Yes, and brought them and wrote like from Yengar was it? Yeah,
Yengar
from
Butte.
Yengar Butte's contribution to the palace was ice water, which was great to have ice water on hand because it's not something you can get at Gen Con easy, and also it's just such an amazing like prop point.
So
That was
cool.
I mean, there's a half a dozen things people did in character that I thought were great. Um,
Yeah, we didn't tell him
the
to do that. He just did
yeah
it.
yeah.
It was so
Um,
cool.
the group of three people giving up their lives to deal with some child who is stuck on a Harkonnen Heinliner that I didn't know the plot of and was all in their backstories, and they were trying to get rid of their guilt from years past. That was like a great part, but
It was like the coolest team up. They
yeah,
found each other in the game. They just did it. They made it
yeah,
happen. That was so cool.
it was like the Emperor's son, a Harkonnen, and Atreides all getting together as sword masters to just kill a bunch of
Go
Harkonnens.
fuck shit up. It was
It's,
awesome.
that was sick. And then at the end, someone said to me, which we were astounded by this, which was, I've never seen a game go off without a single hitch. You guys did so well. And I was like, you didn't see any hitches? Because over here, it was just
It was
hitches.
Hitch City. Only
And
hitches over here.
uh, yeah, but then they said it was the most fun game they've ever played in, and then said that they're also Chicago based, and if we're doing one around here, they'd love to be involved. And I was like, guys, this is the feedback that makes us keep going. We should keep doing it.
Well,
And I'm yeah, so
yeah, so that's the obvious place to kind of start to wrap up here is like, are you going to run this again? Are you going to do it, next year at Gen Con? Are you going to try to do it locally in your own venue where you can control that like only 40, I'm only setting up 40 chairs for this event, no more, um, what's the
Yeah.
afterlife for this event as far for what it looks right now?
Running a game only once doesn't make sense from the amount of work that gets like put into it. For whatever reason, a lot of LARPs only run once, and I think those people are lunatics because so much work went into this that if we don't run it at least two more times, I I don't think we've like made up our more time in game than what we've spent like writing for another two games.
All right, so at least
I
two
just
more
want to do
events.
it.
mhm. Yeah,
I will say, like there's always going to be more work because what River had to do behind the scenes, writing up a character's like a player survey, figuring out where everybody would fit into it, figuring out okay, this person said they wanted to play with them, but they don't want romance. They want to like that was all River. Like River is the expert in that. That's work you have to do every single time you run a game. I only have to write characters once and make some tweaks later.
And we deleted all my mechanics. I haven't worked on the game now, so
Yeah.
that's perfect. That's actually like a thing I keep thinking about for our like TTRPGs is we don't do casting and we don't do workshops. And workshops in LARPs are so good for making people role play well. Even brand new people who've never done it. I've been seeing it over and over that starting with workshops has made people go from I've never done this and I don't know what I'm doing to I'm in character and I'm having fun in an hour when normally it takes 5-6 sessions to catch up to that. And I I think that's something that the TTRPG space needs to take, which is it's not even like a session zero. It's like we're sitting down, we're talking about where your character wants to go in this game and things like that, and how we're gonna do that. And casting, I wish we could cast for real games, but
We can.
everyone will make their own characters now. But
yeah, I mean, I think you're right that is not done, but yeah, it could be. It could be.
Mm-hmm. Some form of it.
Yeah. All right. So my last question for you all is to tell us where, is there a newsletter from a Goblin Market that people can get on? Is there a crowdfunding campaign of some sort from WannabeGames coming soon? Like, do you have blue skies that you like to talk about game stuff with? Like, where can people find each of you and the stuff you do? And tell us what that is if people have enjoyed hearing about that they can find more from each of you if they've enjoyed this conversation.
Goblin Market, you can find us at goblinmkt.com. That's got like our newsletter, links to our Discord, which is the best way to keep up with all the weird nonsense we're doing. But we're a physical store here in Chicago. I'm in it right now. So if you're in Chicago, I don't know, come say hi and bully me into writing a LARP. Tell me it can't be done, because that's what motivates me.
Excellent.
I'm often at Goblin Market in that very basement. However, you can find like my Bluesky is Jawska, and my Discord is also Jawska. It's just JWSKA. You can find me there and talk to me about stuff. We're also Alex and I are running another LARP at BCon. It's a Cobra Kai Karate Kid. That actually does have serial numbers filed off, but not really. And that's it. I don't have a newsletter. I have a newsletter, but I have never sent out a newsletter. So there's no maybe I'll start.
Yeah.
I don't have time. I have other stuff. I have other obligations.
You're still writing more characters. You borrowed time from the future to write those characters.
Mm-hmm.
No more.
Yeah. And I'm WannabeGames on Bluesky because I've gotten rid of my own social media, but sometimes want to talk about what movie I just saw. And yeah, Kitty Crusade on Discord. And
there you go.
We'll be at Gamehole Con as well next month, which is more likely people will see this and then be going to Gamehole than to BCon in a week.
Right. I think this video may not. I think this video may come out in September. I think it may be. I've lost track of my own my own schedule. I'm doing a lot of recording in the month of September, and some of it will come out in September, and some of it probably won't come out until October. So, But anyway, thank you all for recording with me tonight, this evening. Thank you for telling me about this Dune LARP. It's been really fun to hear about like insider process, and I'm so glad it went off well. The spite victory of it can't be done has now proven it can be done, and the document exists, and now people can borrow from it, or you get to use it again, or great. It sounds it's so fun that you've gotten so much Dune into the real world in that way.
Gotta title this one "The Spite Must Flow," and then
the spite must flow.
There you go. It's already done for you.
That is good. That's good. So again, thank you all for talking to me. And I don't know what if you were. I always ask my viewers to write something in the comments. Who would you want to be in house, any of the houses, or factions, Spacing Guild, Bene Gesserit, miners on a planet. Who would you play in the Dune universe if you could play a LARP and sign up? There'll be a whole casting call right there in the comments.
Thanks, Matt.
Shout out to all the chome heads.